Hello and welcome to Metro AV Tech Tips. I'm Brent.
I'm Adam.
And it's Wednesday again.
It is Wednesday again.
Now, Adam's got an interesting topic for us today, and he's attempted to explain it to me
multiple times,
and I understand next week's topic.
Yes. But
I'm still confused about this week's topic. So, Adam, one more time, give it to the old man.
Sure. Okay. So, here's how this works. I know, because here's the thing. This thought process is still formulating in my head. In fact, I said 3 for this episode. There's actually 4 that came to me earlier today. You and I were actually, I was trying to describe it to you one more time.
To explain it to me one more time.
Yes. Yeah, but the best way for me to learn them is for me to teach, and so in that case, that's where I'm going to start, and that's why we're here today. That's a little hint for everybody out there. That's one of the reasons that I do this show, is because as I'm learning, it's easier for me to teach it, to make sure I understand and learn it better.
As you teach it, it's easier for you to learn it?
Yeah, we'll go with that. So, anyways, first and foremost, everybody, thank you so much for checking out today's episode. If you are here on Facebook, let us know in the chat. And again, I'm not entirely sure where it's at. It's either below or off to the side over there. Not entirely sure, but either way, let us know that you're on there, because we're trying to see how well we're doing on Facebook. And again, if you're watching on YouTube, as always, thank you so much. If you have any questions about whatever it is that we are talking about today, please leave it down, over in the chat section over there. Or if you're watching this after the fact, leave it down in the comment section below. We do monitor those, and we do watch for questions, so we can get answers to you as soon as possible.
Tomorrow morning, I promise you, will be. So, Adam?
How'd the video do?
How'd the video do? What are the questions?
Yep. So, of course, on top of that, like, share, subscribe, hit the little bell notification to let you know whenever we do go live.
Send cash.
Which is, of course, every Wednesday at 3 p.m.
And on Friday at 3 p.m.
And on Fridays. And, of course, find us on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and a couple other locations. But it's usually at Metro AV, or on Instagram at AVTechTips, where we post photos and pictures and stuff about whatever it is we're getting ready for on that. So it's a little dated right now. We need to update it and get some actual, fresh blood in there. So
since I don't understand it, being an old man,
yeah, it's down to me then, basically.
Yes, it's down to you.
Okay.
I can take pictures.
Sure. Yeah. So we've got. We'll go ahead and dive into what we've got going on today. Now, today's topic is about the 3 things that every system design. 4 things. We're going to go with 3 things, because the 4th thing is a little bit of a surprise to pretty much everybody.
Including me.
Including you. But the 3 things that you have to have in every single system design, all the way down to the individual components. And this is something that we first have to understand where this thought process came from. So we have a new sales...
And I've been trying.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Well, we have a new sales staff
salesperson on the staff.
Thank you, salesperson. We don't have a whole new sales staff. That would be bad. But we have a new salesperson on the sales staff.
Now you're taunting me.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So with that being said, this person is brand new to our industry, knows very little about the AV side of things, and we wanted to bring them into our world, right? Kind of teach them whatever's going on. And so this is one of those things that I took the opportunity to show them basically everything from the ground up, all the way from, what's a source, what's a display, what's a repeater in the middle. Go back to that episode. We actually talked about that pretty in depth on that. But it gave me an opportunity to kind of break it down even more for this person as I was training them on it. So what came from that training was these 3 things that you have to have for everything. And in fact, as I thought about it some more, I realized that it doesn't just apply to the systems or the equipment that you're putting into it. It's also applying to pretty much anything that you deal with that's at least an electrical device, if not even other types of devices as well, like cars and vehicles and other items as well. So
I'm still staring here, glassy-eyed, waiting to find out what it is we're talking about.
Let me hit the button here, and we'll get this next part up on the screen. So what are the 3 things that every system requires? And I'll lay it out pretty simple. You need power.
Whoa, okay, stop.
Yep.
You've changed it from what you told me the title was going to be, which is what boondoggled me.
Yes.
To 3 things.
3 things, because I realize now that there's not just, it wasn't just 3. What was the word that we used? Components. 3 components. It's not components necessarily, because you can have each component device that's there also requires these 3 things. Yeah.
Right.
These 3 ideas. We'll go with that. 3 ideas.
3 things, and I like things. 3 things you must have
Yes.
for a system to work.
Right.
Adam, what are those 3 things?
First thing is power. Everything has to have power. Well, to some extent,
I'm going to have
right?
to send them some money on that one.
Right. Yeah, there you go. 3 things you have to have. One is power. The second thing, especially in the AV world, is signal. We have to have signal, whether it's audio signal, video signal. It has to have some kind of signal connection. A purpose, exactly. Because you're not going to take something that just uses power and plug it in and just leave it there, right? I mean, that's basically you're creating a space heater. But even a space heater has signal because it has the heat coming out of it. That's the signal that's coming from it. So it has a purpose. The third thing that you have to have is you have to have control, right?
It's a little late in my life to learn that.
You've completely lost all of it, I'm assuming at this point. So, with that said, those are the 3 things that you have to have. Thanks everybody for watching today's episode. We'll see you all next time.
You realize they're going to believe you.
I know. No, here's the thing. So, I want to break it down a little bit more and show you what I mean exactly. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give us a top-down shot so you can see what's going on here. Let's do this, and then I'm going to do this. Look at us. We're up there in the corner. Okay.
You know, you just killed my... I'm going to take a break and sit down.
I know. Yep. No, you're not getting away from it now. So let's look at pretty much everything that we have here. So let's start with just the simple Apple TV, right? So an Apple TV, pretty straightforward. This device here has a couple things here on the back of it. I want you to notice what you have going on here. We have power, right? Pretty straightforward. Every single device that we have here needs power. We have HDMI. What's HDMI, Brent?
Signal.
It's signal, but it's A and V on that one as well.
Not just A and V. It's also, what's the last component you need?
Control.
Exactly.
So it also has control on that because it has CEC on it as well. And then lastly, we have a network connection here, which is one way for us to get both signal and control to this device, right? So the signal coming in from whatever streaming service you're using, and control because you can control these over IP, right?
I see there's another form of control on the table there.
There is. You've got the remote for it. So the remote for the Apple TV, you've got pretty straightforward. This is how we control the Apple TV, whether it be over the network or CEC, or for instance, this Apple TV could be controlling the TV. So we have all the way from the device itself all the way up to the entire system as a whole. So those 3 things, if you break down the system that you're designing, and in fact, this is where I use this concept. Use this concept in the design phase because this is going to make things really easy for yourself, right? So you need to make sure that the entire system has these 3 tenets, right?
Am I having flashbacks to Control 4 room design programming?
Possibly.
That's what this sounds
Possibly?
like to me.
I don't know, but anyway, so every system has to have power, right? So you have power strips. You've got rack-mounted power systems. You've got power strips. You've got smart power, dumb power, wall power, battery backups. You've got different types of power, right? So that's where power comes in. From there, and with power, you need to make sure that you have the right amount of power. So not only do we have the right number of outlets for the number of devices that we have. So for instance, this was the 12 outlet, or did it have 14?
14.
14. So this is one of
That's
our...
the 3014.
Yeah. So this is one of our older units that is fantastic. And if anybody's been buying from us now for however long, you probably remember this. Fantastic unit. We had, when I was still
working... It does
working...
need some cosmetic upgrades, but I would love to bring it back.
Yeah, this guy here, when I was working for one of the local shops here in town, they had inventory of this when I was hired on, and this was already years after it was gone. And I used up pretty much all of them because it had everything I needed. It was a great piece.
Packaging was suspect.
That's true. But the thing is that with packaging, it goes away, and you've got the part, and you're still good.
So that's our power.
And
then we have things like your extension cords. IEC cables. Now, power. Mm-hmm. What is power comprised of?
Well, are we talking AC or DC?
It doesn't matter.
Voltage and current.
And what's the most important part of that?
Current.
And the power strip, it is, because the voltage is merely the carrier.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you that.
Back to your design philosophy.
Uh-huh.
As you're setting up your design, because power is one of the primary things, our components you must have.
Yeah.
You have to look at your device setup. What is my draw? What is my current draw?
Yeah.
How many devices am I going to have? 10 amps, 15 amps? Do I need 20 amp supply?
Yep.
all this plays into the first part, which is your power.
Right.
And then you have to take that to the wall.
Yep.
How much do you have coming out of the house from your circuit breaker panel?
Right. Yeah. Do you have a 15 amp circuit at where you're plugging in all of your equipment?
And you need 20.
Or do you need 20? That's all things that you have to consider. So as you're designing the system, go ahead and put in all of the requirements from the client. The client says, "Hey, I want to have, an amazing system. It's got all this stuff in there. It's got amazing amplifiers, whatever else it is." So that's fine. Design that, but understand as you're designing it and putting that stuff together, take note. How much power are you requiring for that system that you're putting together, right? And then that way, make sure that you've got whatever you need at the wall.
The next thing is in power, before you get on to your next one.
Yep.
When you're looking at your power cord.
Yeah.
I am honestly not a fan of the super bizarre esoteric power cords.
Sure.
But I am a fan of sufficient amounts of copper.
Yes.
And I don't care who you buy, what you buy, and who you buy it from.
Yep.
Power cords are a finite cost, and it's a place that, at least in our industry, they're going to give you the bare minimum that you need because they assume you're going to go out and buy a better power cord anyway.
Right.
Just like upgrading the tires on your car, the brakes, the air filter, the things that you would do to make it perform better.
Yep. So like if you buy from the dealership, you have enough to handle itself and a little bit above, and that's about it, right? You're not going to get any amazing amounts.
That is what's necessary to move the product.
Exactly. So now, for instance, you were talking about copper, like this one here.
This
is an 18 gauge. So this is normally one that you would find in something that doesn't need a lot of power at all,
right.
something like a
smaller
TV or something really small. So one of the things that you can do to ensure that the system that you're using, if you go out and buy additional IEC power cords, make sure that the cords themselves are able to handle the device that you're plugging them into.
Preferably, you're at least next sizing up.
Right.
If not doubling your copper.
Yeah. Save you. Honestly, at this point, I just my go-to is just 14 gauge for pretty much everything.
Yeah, because that's going to cover residentially.
Right. Yeah.
Until you get to a 20 amp draw like some of the big mono amplifiers.
Correct.
At which point you want to go to 12. But yes, 14 gauge is a good, safe, and shorter's better.
So one thing that I want to talk about with like the Apple TV remote itself is the fact that the remote itself has these three staples, these three. I keep trying to come up with a word. Things, staples,
I like staples.
tenants, whatever. So these three things you have to know, but the remote itself has those. So think about it. This Apple remote has a battery inside of it, right?
So
it's got power, right? And it has to be charged. Some of them don't. You can get the Control 4, which uses just the AA batteries, or you can get the replacement battery pack.
By the way, if you're going to get the Control 4 that uses the AA batteries, change the AA batteries.
Yeah, I had this one sat for 3, 4, 5 months, something like that, and opened it up, and they were all kind of corroded. Granted, we're down here in Florida, so we get that Florida, so we get that pretty bad. But with that, you just need to make sure that understand that everything that you have for this has that problem. You need to make sure, or not problem, has those three things. The signal from this is just literally the Bluetooth connection or the IR connection to the Apple TV itself, or to whatever device the Apple TV is controlling through it. Because these do that, it can learn the CEC, or it can learn what the TV is through the EDID, and then it learns it uses the IR codes from whatever server, comes down, and then it controls it directly. Kind of cool stuff. But with that, with the remote, that's your signal. So that communication is the signal for this. But then the control itself, of course, is the buttons on the front of it. That's how you actually control the remotes, which then controls the device that it's talking to over the signal, right?
Right.
So those three tenets are still applicable to this. And you need to make sure that as you're designing the system when it comes to power, you are considering power for these types of devices as well. Because think about it. If you have the Apple TV remote and you're using just a very basic system, you've got the TV plugged in, you've got the Apple TV plugged into that TV, this is their remote that they're going to be using to communicate and control the TV. Well, in that case, you better make sure that you have some way to charge this remote, or else you're going to be in trouble because eventually the battery's going to run out.
And a cable in a position that's not easily theftable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's amazing how many people steal lightning cables.
Well, and yeah, exactly, because we're using just the lightning cable on that. So these are things to consider as well along the way. And again, if you just apply these three staples or these three tenets or whatever you want to call it, these three ideas to every step along the way, it kind of helps to compartmentalize the designing of the system, right? So long as you have those three check marks, you've made sure we've got power taken care of, fantastic. Then you can move on to the next thing.
And particularly on a network device like this, or when we get to the control side of it, what you really want is power that's controllable.
Yes.
Because resets are a fact of life.
Yes, they are. Yeah, very much so.
I don't care what it is.
Yep. So the next
So
thing
is
that,
that power or control?
which one's that?
The resets.
The resets? That's control.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of power.
Wait, hold on, hold on. You're talking about actually like rebooting power,
Yeah.
like unplugging something, plugging
Yeah,
back in?
but if you have a power supply system with controllable outlets.
Sure.
Now I just put the word controllable in there.
Well, with that,
But is it power?
It's a combination.
Or is it control?
It's a combination,
all three,
right?
Because you still have to have the signal to.
Exactly. Well, and that's kind of what, like with a remote, it's not necessarily that these three things. It's not. You're looking at it from the actual
this is one
operation
thing,
of
this
it.
is another thing.
Right,
They're all
right.
together. They
Yeah.
are the legs that hold up
Exactly.
the stool.
It's the tripod, right? It's the tripod of it's the tripod of system design. That's our episode name.
Well, that's a lot more exciting than the stool.
It's the tripod of system design.
I was going to go with milking stool, but
Good thing we didn't go that direction. Okay, so tripod of system design. That's fantastic. I'm going to go in and actually change the name of this. Chris, you missed. You just missed us rambling along about the tripod of system design.
don't ask.
So
Just don't.
with so from there, we've talked about power. One of the main things with power, of course, is just ensuring that we have power, and we have power ran in a way that's protecting the rest of the system. Because if we are designing it into a rack of some kind, which by the way, we've changed our camera angle a little bit. We're zoomed in a little bit so you can't see over here. But if you're designing a rack system, you need to make sure that power is away from your both signal and your control, because it's going to walk all over and it's going to create problems for everything else, right? So that's really important.
What kind of problems does it create?
Well, it depends on the type of, are we talking about control or are we talking about signal? Because if we're talking about signal, we have problems with HDMI where we have sparkles. We have problems with audio where we get a hum or a buzz or something else. If we're talking about control, we can just lose control in general. It would just interference overall, right? So those are things to consider when it comes to power. When you're designing the rack itself, right? When you're designing the rack and how you're going to lay things out, those three staples or that tripod
Tripod of design.
Tripod of design. That tripod of design, we're gonna have to change it because it's not three anymore. It's gonna be four. It's the stool of design.
No, that's three.
Let's not call it the stool of
stool.
design. That doesn't sound right.
The chair.
The chair of design. So
Table. The table.
The table of design. The quadruped of design.
Isn't that a four-wheeler you take out into the forest and run into trees with?
I guess maybe the quad of design. The quad of design, right? I don't know. Anyways, okay, moving on. So now that we've got power taken care of, and these are things that, again, when you're designing the system, making sure that you have power for each device, but also making sure that you have power ran in a way to where it's protecting the rest of the system is important. When you're designing the rack itself, or when you're designing the cabinet where all the equipment is going, these are things to consider along that way. Every step that you come to next, make sure that you're applying those three things.
I'm going to ask you, since we're talking design, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions.
Sure.
When I design my racks off my primary power, whatever it is,
Sure.
my controlled power, I run an extension cord to each shelf.
Sure.
This way, this is laced in the rack.
Yes.
I do not lace my power cords for my amps, my sources, my control device. None of those get laced into the rack.
Yeah.
What gets laced in is an extension cord.
Leo, you've got my direct phone number. It's actually here on the screen, 386-202-6132. That's my direct number. You can text it. Text me the picture that you're running into right now. I'll see if I can put it up on screen somehow.
I am a firm believer in this way. Because if you have to, particularly if you're in a situation where you have to reroute power,
Yes.
either you buy specialized IEC power cords, but I really don't like to have that stuff laced down.
Well,
this is a great way to do it.
That allows you the ability to replace the equipment
change
that's there
gear.
and change the gear out for whatever
Not
it is.
just model to model, but potentially an entirely different product.
Well, and when you go to label it at that point, you're labeling the rack number.
Yes.
And so you can say rack number 1, 2, 3, or sorry, shelf number 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
And then you can go from there. Okay, so we've got power, right? Now let's talk about signal. Now, signal has been one of the things that we as a company have been, pretty well in line with. Signal is kind of the thing to go. Whoop, power, already did that one. And do one more here. Signal. So, signal, we're intimately aware of signal because that's one of our primary things is HDMI, right? HDMI, for the most part, is signal. It's the AV signal that's going from the source device going to the display, ensuring that we have picture and audio, right? Or, AVR or whatever else you're doing with it. There are capabilities that are built into the HDMI cable, including control. So we have CEC, but for the most part, the HDMI.
Don't forget power.
Right.
Because what does power do in HDMI?
Well, power ensures that the output. Well, so the display is powering the output of the source. The input of the display is powering the output of the source because it runs backwards.
Which takes us back to power, voltage, and current.
Which takes us back to voltage, for all of that. It's very important, right? The power itself is just super important, as well as signal and control for it. But these are things that to consider that even when you get to the point of selecting, and actually Michael Heiss made a good point. He says cables don't have control or power, and they are passive. There are many passive components elsewhere in the ecosystem. They handle.
An extension cord doesn't have power.
It's considerations of that because, like Brent said, the HDMI cable itself handles power in some fashion. It handles signal in some fashion.
Gauge of the cable, the winding of the cable,
the length of the cable. Make sure that these are things that you should consider during that design phase. You can say,
then if it's an active cable,
exactly. How much is it using?
They're drawing power on top of what they're passing.
Right. So at the signal phase is where I start breaking down even more into the design phase. Because the signal phase is where we start talking about, okay, are we doing 1080p, 4K, 8K? Are we doing HDR? Are we doing surround sound? Are we doing stereo? That's where things really, that's really where the meat and potatoes of the system kind of lies. Everything else is really a foundation for it. Or pardon me. Power really is kind of like the foundation of the system. Then you've got signal, which is kind of the meat and potatoes. It's the walls, it's the furniture, it's everything else inside of the building. And with that, that's where most of people. What do you consider
control? The window dressing?
The doors and the windows.
The curtains. I think it's the window dressing. Because let's face it, let's be honest.
Sure. Yeah.
You could do this.
Yeah, the Apple TV remote.
And that's everything you need.
Yeah.
Or you can do this.
Yeah.
And you and I both,
yes,
this is what we do.
Yeah.
But, or, as it was when I was a child, son, go change the channel.
you were the control.
I was the control. Well, no, I was the controlled person.
Controlled, yeah.
There was control, I was just the controlee.
Yes.
So, to me, the control is kind of the window dressing that makes or breaks how well the system is utilized by the consumer.
So this was sent in by Leo. I'm going to try and put it up in some way. I don't think there's going to be a good way for me to do that. Just a mess. I'm assuming that was the before.
There's a lot going on there.
Yeah. So.
And not over, forget the cabling. The hardware doesn't look overly well organized.
Yeah.
Look at where the modem is.
Yeah.
Sending off to.
Yep, exactly.
Wow.
So, Leo,
Thanks, Leo.
yeah, thank you for that. I'm actually going to send it in some way here on the screen in just a little bit. I got to figure that out. But, so when it comes to signal really is, like I said, it's where the meat and the potatoes of the system is.
Can you cast it to the TV?
Maybe. Possibly.
I'm asking.
I'll find out. But when you design the system, as you go from step to step, as you go into saying, okay, we've got the rack. Let's use the rack as an example, right? So the rack system itself, we need to make sure that we have signal being able to flow through that rack correctly in the most efficient way possible. So we can say, okay, we've got our Apple TV, we've got our cable box, we've got our control system, we've got whatever else. So the control, on-screen interface, AVR, whatever. But let's say we have a matrix in there. So is it super efficient, and does it really matter if we put the matrix at the top and put everything below it? Is it better to put equipment around it and have the matrix in the middle? Does it really matter? Probably not a whole lot.
This is legitimately something I've argued with myself and you.
Yeah.
And myself, because my rack design philosophy has certainly changed over the years. Without question, heavy at the bottom.
Yes.
Whether it's UPS, amplifiers, doesn't matter. I don't want the rack tipping over because of my own vanity.
Right.
And typically in the past, what I would do is put sources that I did not need to touch, like a cable box or an Apple TV, at the top of the rack. And then as you work your way down, things that require are allowed hands-on interface.
Right.
video game consoles you can load or something like that. The matrix, to me, typically was put in the middle of the sources.
Sure.
And then the AVR below the sources.
Yep.
So that way I could keep those wires as short as I could for management purposes.
Yep.
And then a single one out of that into the AVR.
Well, it's also good practice to have it as short as possible, because usually that's helpful to the signal in general.
Except in HDMI.
Except in HDMI, where sometimes it's better to have a 2-meter cable instead of a shorter one. But in most cases, it's better to have a slightly
18
shorter
inches
one.
better than 36.
Sure. So when it comes to signal, that's really where you need to make sure that you have the rest of the system in mind when you're designing it, because you can say, okay, I've got this TV here. Let's use this one as an example. This is an LG 8K. It's 120 meter 4K, or sorry, 120 hertz 4K. It's a 60 hertz 8K. It's got HDR. It's got almost all the bells and whistles of the HDMI 2.1 specification. However, it's missing the variable refresh rate, but that's neither here nor there. But the point is that with this system here, with this TV, if I knew that I needed variable refresh rate, guess what? This one's wrong. So my signal is now, I've taken into consideration my signal.
Take a step out of it that you might want.
Right. And so at that point, that's something to consider with that. We need to make sure that the TV has power, right? Well, this TV is mounted to the wall. Power's right there behind it, taken care of, plug it in, we're good to go.
Would that be the cord hanging right there?
Yeah, that'd be one of those cords plugged, back there. But with signal, we need to say, okay, well, I've got an Xbox Series X over here that can do 4K 120 variable refresh rate, the VRR. I need to make sure that I have, variable refresh rate on the TV.
Well, now it's important to understand that our first TV, which was the 8K Samsung,
didn't have any of it.
Didn't have the 4K 120.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. It had the 8K 60, but it didn't have the 4K 120.
Right.
Actually, did it have the 8K 60 or was it 8K?
I think it was 8K 30.
Anyways.
But when we tried to plug this in nobody had actually looked at the specs. We just bought it because it was the 8K Samsung.
Yeah, it's an 8K Samsung. Well, we needed it for one of the shows, if I remember correctly.
We did, yes.
But with the Xbox, we need a variable refresh rate. Well, guess what? This TV doesn't have variable refresh rate. So if I had applied all of that, these three staples, if I had applied the quad of design, I still don't like that one. We'll come up with something.
The design matrix?
The design matrix? No, because it's got to be 4. It's got to be 4 something. Help me out, people. 4 something. The 4. The 4 something
the
of
pillars
design.
Of design.
The pillars
the 4
of design.
Pillars of design.
Pillars is pretty good. I kind of like that one a little bit. Okay, but with this here, if I had applied those pillars, or whatever we want to call it, into this system here, I would have looked up and seen, okay, the specs of this show that it's capable of doing the variable refresh rate, the 4K 120, the 8K video, and then I would have applied that to the TV to make sure that I had that, but I didn't.
But we didn't do that.
No, we didn't. Now, granted, we learned our lesson, and we know now moving forward, but
there's a caveat to this whole thing. We got what was available.
That is the biggest thing. That was kind of it. The truth is that we were looking for something, and we thought, well, we could get this, but that's not available. But this is the next best thing, so let's go ahead and get that.
It's what was available.
Right.
And as we know, in our current state of the Union of Technology,
sure,
what's available
is what you're getting. Yeah. So Signal, I'm not gonna dwell on Signal for too long, because that's something that is talked about a lot. When you look at most of our videos, in fact, the majority of our videos, we talk about Signal. That's kind of the Fantastic Four. That's a good one. The Fantastic Four of
Who came up
Signal
with that?
Design. That was Chris McDonald.
Okay.
Chris, thank you for
Chris.
that. Appreciate that. So
that's better than the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse.
Well, I mean, it depends on the job, right? I mean, we could be looking at some pretty serious things. So I'm going to move on from Signal a little bit, only because, again, like I said, we talk about that a lot. You can go back and watch pretty much any of our episodes where we talk about Signal design of some kind, when it comes to HDMI, audio, or whatever it is.
So what are we going to talk about now?
I want to talk about control, because control.
I have to.
What was the Get Smart? You had control.
No, it was chaos and control.
Chaos and control. That's what it is. Okay.
Chaos and control.
Okay. So you got to have control, because if you don't have control, you
have chaos.
Exactly. So, well, and here's the thing. Control, again, as long as you're considering what you're doing, right? So I want to put a specific device in a rack. Actually, wait a minute. If I hit this button here, I should get control. Control.
Dun, dun, dun.
Right? Okay. So control, pretty straightforward stuff. Just like before, with power and with Signal, control is just controlling whatever device you have in that system, or controlling the entire system as a whole. Because when you go from the device itself, right? Because as an integrator, we have to consider how does the system control that device, right? So if we say with the Apple TV, and again, I'm going to use Control 4 because that's what I know. With the Apple TV, I'm probably going to use the IR driver for this Apple TV, right?
And why is that?
It just works. It just works.
More reliably.
Right? So what's nice about this is that when I'm considering using this device, I know that one of the things that I'm going to look for, because I'm putting those 3 pillars together, or the 4 pillars together, I'm going to use and look for what type of control this device actually has. What's going on, Colin? So I'm going to look and see what type of control this device actually has.
Well, now it has IP control.
Right, it does. So it has.
I'm not a fan of network connecting an Apple TV.
Well, and there's a lot of drama in the history of Control 4 and Apple TV for networking control and
Control 4.
Yeah.
I don't like a network connection to an Apple TV because it locks them up.
Leo says, from the windows to the walls, the cables drip from the rack. So, control. Let's use the Apple TV for an example, right? So we have. Let's count the ways that we can control it, right? We've got IR.
How do I love thee? Let me count the ways.
That's the reference I was trying to go for. I was rapidly trying to find some way to say it correctly. So we've got IR, right? That's probably one of the most other than a button.
Well, no. This is actually a Bluetooth remote.
It is, and I'm getting there. So we have IR as an option, right? Mm-hmm. So from the IR, we also have Bluetooth, and that's what the Apple TV remote uses for its communication. Then we also have IP, right? Mm-hmm. So we've got 3 ways to control it from there. But we also have CEC over the HDMI, right? Mm-hmm. What other ways do we have to control this?
Well, there's the hammer method.
The hammer method, and not again. You laugh about this. You laugh about that, but these are things that literally, as you break this down, as you break it down,
it's not without value.
One of the control ways to control this is actually to unplug it. I kid you not, but one of the things you laughed and made the joke about the thing to unplug and plug it in, right? So when you remove power and put power back to it, so you can unplug it and plug it back in. What's going on, Stuart?
Hey, Stuart.
What's going on? How's it going? So with the Apple TV, what did I get to? We got up to 4 official ways. The 4 official ways, yeah, to control it, right? Then we have 2 additional, unofficial ways of just unplugging power and plugging it back in, or the hammer method when you are done with it. There's also the 30-06 way, and there's also the 9mm way, and the 45, whatever.
Or the dead Apple toss.
Yeah, that works too. So. Now that
this one's 4K, it says so right there.
It says so on the bottom. So with the Apple TV then, because we have those 4 official ways to actually control the Apple TV, I know that in my design, I have 4 different ways to control it. I have 4 different things that I can consider as control for that. So,
okay, I'm going to ask you a question, because in this past week you deployed a Josh.
Yeah.
How is the Josh controlling the Apple TV through the control 4? Is it IR?
So the way that we're getting into specifics of product at
this point. But that's a voice command.
So Josh is a remote. In the way that we're using it in the job that we put it in, Josh is a remote. He's really no different than an SR260 that we put onto the job as well. It's a remote to then send the command to Control 4 of doing something, then Control 4 controls that device.
Gotcha. In that case, keep going.
Yep. Now that's different than the Roku, because with the Roku in Josh,
it's direct.
It's direct because I can tell Josh to go ahead and say watch Bob's Burgers on Netflix or Hulu, or just say watch Bob's Burgers, and he'll go to the Roku and say, let's watch it. What's the best way to watch it? It's going to find it. Here's Hulu, and turn it on, and we're good to go. Once he finds it, though, he'll tell the rest of the system through Control 4 to switch the inputs, turn on the TV, and whatever else. And that's how that part of it works. So. When it comes to control, we know with the Apple TV, I have 4 ways to control that one device, right? So now let's go up a level. We have the Apple TV, we've got the Roku, we've got the Xbox, we've got the cable box, whatever it is, right? We've got all these different devices. How do we control all of those devices? Well, we can get all of the different remotes and put them in a basket on the table and tell the client, go ahead and grab whichever remote you need to control and just use those, right? That is one way to do it.
And it's not an uncommon way.
And it's not. And the thing is that most consumers are doing it that way because, 1, they don't know any better, or 2, they don't have the time, energy, or finances to put into some kind of central
control system
or just a universal remote of some kind. So because of that, that's one thing to consider. How am I controlling this one system? And that system could be as small as just a TV and one extra device, or as large as an entire complex of devices and equipment. And so those are things that you have to consider along that way. I would even break it down into the rooms because, again, Control 4 programming and training is instilled in me. But when you look at the room itself, how am I controlling this one room? Do I have a remote? Do I have a touch panel? Am I using my phone? Am I using my voice? How am I controlling the equipment in this room? On top of that, we can say, how am I getting signal to this room? How is the signal traveling through this room or for this room? And then finally, power. We can say, how is this room getting power? So at every stage, at every stage, we need to make sure that we're using these 4 tenets. Now, I keep going through and I keep saying that there's 4, and I've said it only 3, and I've really only called out 3.
So we're waiting for the 4th.
So the 4th one, where are we at right now?
Dun, dun.
We're actually going through this episode pretty quickly. It's only 3:30, 3:36.
It's 3:36.
So we'll wrap this up though, because the last thing that we have is location. Location. So, location has the most effect on all of the other tenets.
Pillars. Of the Fantastic Four.
Of the quad,
So location's basically the Reed Richards of the...
Yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah.
Because he's the smart one.
Yeah.
Controls everything.
Well, and location, right? He's got the motion things. You've got Johnny Storm. Johnny Storm?
Yeah.
Johnny Storm, he would be power?
To me, that would be Ben Grimm. The Thing.
Okay.
Because that's just
Johnny Storm is going to be
strength.
Let's see.
Signal.
He's signal, and then what's
So he's
control?
got the force field to control. So
See, there you go, right? See? The Fantastic Four works out really well, actually, so because it falls into all of it. But no, okay, so location is really important because location defines the requirements of the rest of the equipment. Because you can say, okay, I have a TV here, and my equipment, the rest of my equipment is 100 feet that direction.
Well, you're not doing it with a 1 meter HDMI cable.
Well, no, you're going to need to do something else. You're either going to use like a VLOX active fiber cable, or you're going to use something else to make sure that you get the signal all the way over there.
And the control.
If you're using CEC. Now you also need to consider, or IP.
Or IR.
All these things are defined by the location of where they are. You can have everything plugged in right here, and that changes the way that you are going to design the system, and based on those pillars of design, those 4 pillars of design, the quad, the Fantastic Four, whatever you want to call it. So these are things that, as you're designing the system, are really important to do. I kind of want to do like a CEDIA white paper of design for something like this, because this is something that I feel like if you had a way to put a checklist to everything that you do, my checklist is, where is it? Does it have power? Does it have signal? And lastly, can you control it? Or how are you controlling it is the better thing.
All I can think of is Drax saying, why is it?
Why? But why is Drax? Who is Drax? So those are the 4 pillars, the Fantastic Four pillars. The Fantastic Four pillars of system design. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about this, was because this was something that came up in training of someone who knows absolutely nothing about these systems. And which was really, it was kind of a breath of fresh air. We'll say that, because I was able to come at the design. Yeah, I was able to come at the design and process and the system process from a fresh angle. I was able to kind of look at it from a new way, and it was really how is Drax, Colton. Everyone asks where is Drax. No one asks how is Drax. So.
He's okay.
He's okay. He's all right. He's
okay. He's okay.
He's but using those 4 pillars again, it even from something super basic of, look, I have literally, or better yet, a smart TV.
Yeah, just a TV.
Just a smart TV that has the function, that has the streaming services built into it, right? So we think about that. Okay, well, I need power. Well, in most cases, we have power behind the TV or somewhere nearby. If we don't have it behind the TV, maybe we need to use some kind of power relocation kit or something like that, where we get power from the ground up to the TV. We need to make sure that we have signal, because with
Wi-Fi,
a TV like
at
this,
the very minimum, not hardwired.
Yep, Wi-Fi, hardwired, whatever it may be for that type of connection. And signal is actually kind of important too, because we have the internals of this to make sure that we have the signal showing up on the TV correctly. A signal can also be defined as the streaming apps themselves. Do you have the service for that streaming app? Have you paid for Netflix?
Have you paid for it?
Have you paid for it? Which is a valid question when you are doing tech support. Brent, how many times have we run into that?
Is that paid for?
Is that paid for? So then from there, we have, of course, control. And controls, for those, are usually pretty straightforward. They come with their own remote, right?
Or Alexa or Google or Apple
or Google.
Home.
You can also control it from your phone. You can stream stuff directly to it. Or you can use the motion controls, because LG, is it throwing you off a little bit? You can use the LG controls. It all depends on how you need to control it. And in some cases, you can just use your voice with Alexa or Google or something. But of course, the last thing is location, because where are you putting that TV is really important. Are you going to are you going to put it on a stand? Because if you put it on a stand, you don't necessarily want power behind the TV. You're probably going to plug into something on the floor. If it's on a stand, your signal is probably easier to do a hardwired connection, because in most cases, the modem or router is going to be directly in whatever stand it's sitting on. Nearby. Control probably stays about the same, because you're going to use the remote for it. And then, of course, from there. But if you have it mounted to a wall,
life changes.
Life changes a little bit, right? Because that affects everything else for you. You need to make sure you have power there. Or again, if you go out into the Jurassic large side of things, where you have an entire
Jurassic
home,
large size?
a Jurassic large size, it's not wrong.
It's Jurassic large size.
Jurassic large size, gigantic size. When you get into those large systems, the same thing applies. Do I have power to power everything in this system? Is the building itself, receiving enough power?
Have you done boats yet? Where you actually had to put out a grid sheet of current draw for every device?
No, I did not have to go that far, because we were within whatever boundaries we were already given. It was like an Apple TV, EA1, and a TV, and that was it. And so we were well within whatever power requirements were there. But yeah,
I had to have a power worksheet on a boat.
Yeah, it's important on a boat, because you have a generator. You have a finite amount of power that you have for the entire boat.
You do in a home as well.
Yes.
If you have a 100 amp service, 200 amp service, 600 amp service.
Yeah.
That's the service. That's all you got.
That's what you got. Yeah. So from there, that's, the large systems. Do we have power? And signal's really super, super important for all of that, because obviously if you don't have signal, you don't have picture. But if you don't have power, you don't have picture, right? If you don't have
control, you probably don't have picture.
If you don't have control, you have no way to actually activate any of this stuff. And lastly, it's location, because the location differs. Are you doing a system that has good internet service? Are you inside of a city, or you're close to a city where you have good internet service?
Does your WAP have a good connection to the PoE switch?
Sure. Do you have? Yeah. No, I got that reference.
Just asking.
Yeah. 4 pillars in a rack: cables, power, service, location. Oh, hey, services are kind of cool. So that's important stuff. The control of such a large system like that, and also location, because location is saying, okay, is it a cabin in the woods type of system? Do you have internet service? Because that's creepy. That changes. Yeah, creepy. That changes everything. Because if you don't have internet service, or if you're way out in the middle of nowhere, you don't have Netflix, you don't have Hulu, unless of course you have like satellite service or Starlink or whatever. But these are things to consider in your system design. Apply these 4 pillars to every step of your system design, and it helps to, like I said before, compartmentalize the system design itself. It helps to break it down so that it's easier to understand and ensure that you have everything covered. Because that's the important part, is
not to forget something.
And not to forget something. And that's why we do this, right? That's why we have a system built to do this, is to ensure that we don't forget anything. We don't miss out anything that we should have covered for it. You will, and that's, things like that, and whatever else you run into, you're gonna forget something, but you're gonna learn it for the next time, and that's gonna be applied to your next pillar. That's gonna be applied to your thought process for that. That's really where these pillars of design come from, and I had fun coming up with this. I think it's a
well,
a
it progressed
thing.
quite nicely in the broadcast.
Sure, yeah,
with the
worked out pretty
Fantastic
well.
Four.
Yeah, Fantastic Four. That worked out really well. And I really appreciate that. That was Chris that came up with that. So everyone, that basically covers it from my end. Unless you had something else.
Don't forget to visit us on Friday.
Yes, come back on Friday, where we are actually talking about control directly, because we don't have. It's not very often that we talk about control itself, because most of our stuff is not necessarily. It's signal. Yeah, we transmit that signal. But even talking about control, we have to make sure that you have the ability to transmit the signal of that control. You need to make sure that that control device has power. You need to find out where is it located, because hey, if you're using something like an SR260, do you have a Zigbee connection to this SR260? Do you need to put something in place where you have it? It goes down further and further and further. It can be a little dangerous if you keep going with that further and further and deeper into the design. But at a certain level, you just make sure that you cover everything that you need for it. So
then pray.
Yeah. Come back on Friday. We're going to talk about, it's actually our IR kit, but it's going to be a little different than what we normally do. This Friday episode is going to be specifically about how to use our IR kit system and our IR repeater system over a long distance, or how to use it on a
because I got to call
wire.
that this morning.
Yes. So come back on Friday. We're going to talk about that. Next week, we are talking about surveillance and power requirements.
Oh, that one I understood.
No, yeah, that one's pretty straightforward. You need to make sure that you have enough power, enough current.
Well, that's it. Now we have no episode for next week.
We're done basically. So, anyways,
we can take next Wednesday off.
We're gonna be here. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. As always, if you are watching this, please leave us a comment over in the chat section, or leave us a comment down in the bottom section below. We do watch those and monitor those. So if you have questions after the fact, leave it down there for us. We do come back and respond to those. And you do give us ideas for our episodes. So we always appreciate that. If you have ideas, put it down in the comment section below to where we can come up with some good ideas for shows and topics and stuff that you want us to talk about. Come back on Friday, of course. Come back next
IR
week.
Component.
Yep.
And next week, and whatever next Friday is.
Whatever next Friday is. And so from there, everybody, thank you so much for checking out today's episode.
You can reach us at Brent.McCall@metroav.com, 386-202-6137, or
you can reach me at adam.rogers@metroav.com, or you can reach me here at the phone number 386-202-6132. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't show off Leo's picture. Hold on one second.
Figure out how?
No, it's not going to stream over to the other one. I'm just going to give us a top-down shot. We're going to do it the janky way. So from there... lots of wires, lots of messes, lots of good stuff going on for what he's got happening there. And then there was...
whoa.
Yeah, did you see that?
Look at those... Wow. Okay, I got some questions.
It's a... I don't see a name on it.
I'll have to call Leo on that. I got some questions.
Yeah, right? Very cool. So, Leo, good luck to you, sir, out there. And I know you're dealing with a mess of things to work with right now. Keep us updated. Brent will probably reach out to you and see what's going on. Everybody, thank you for checking us out. Of course, as always, find us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, all that kind of good stuff. Like, share, subscribe, hit the little bell to let you know whenever we do go live, which, of course, is every Wednesday and Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. But with that,
I'm Brent.
I'm Adam.
Reboot early.
Reboot often.
Don't cut your wires too short.
Turn off CEC.
And call tech support. Have a great week.
Bye, everybody. We'll see you next time.